folks. My name is Jim Worthen. The show is Worthen One. We're here on Channel 17, Cox Cable, from Carpinteria to Goleta, every day at 2 o'clock, every weekday, Monday through Friday, and then Friday evening at 7. But that's just the first possibility of seeing us. You can record it and play it, but we're also out on Cox TVSB website. It goes out on the internet, and we're on YouTube on the internet. So that's important because more and more the guests I have aren't just talking about the city of Santa Barbara or issues on the South Coast. Even when they are talking about that, I try to expand the issues to what other people in the country or the world are facing. I have one of my more special guests to me. I'm very selfish about the relationship we have personally, and a real stalwart of the community. It's amazing how often you'll see his name pop up at other organizations, and he's a sports nut. We'll talk about that. He's kind of crazy that way, and again, except for collections, where I only have one collective piece, he's got it. I'm sure he'd be glad to have you come by his office and see millions of dollars worth of collectibles. How are you, Tim?
Hey, it's good to be here, Jim.
Did I say something wrong?
No, you're telling the truth. You're very transparent.
We're going to go through the show and talk about what's called macro economy, the worldwide, nationwide economy, then the micro economy, and then your services.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you?
Sure, absolutely.
But let's first talk about sports.
Okay.
You played football, and you had a wonderful brother who just recently passed to the Lord, and he played football too. And the interesting thing that people can learn out of that was he was a natural. He was natural physically. He was natural aggression-wise. And here his little brother Tim had to do weights. And is that accurate?
Well, it is. You know, he was somebody I always looked up to. He was the toughest guy I ever met, Tim Tremblay. Mark Patton, who was the sports editor for the Santa Barbara News Press, did a wonderful article on John. He called it Big Bad John, the Johnny Cash and Jimmy Dean song from back in the 60s. And that was kind of my brother's theme song. He was the toughest guy, one of the toughest ever. He was an undefeated heavyweight champion in boxing for the Santa Barbara Boxing Club. When we would go surfing, he was the only guy that had a small board, and here he is, 240 pounds, going up and down that wave on a small board back in the 60s. He was the shot put champion at Bishop Diego High School, set the record for the school, and he also was a high jumper. So here you have a 240-pound guy going 5'10" on the high jump to pick up points for the team at track meets. So yeah, he was very, very special that way. In football, he did it all. He was All-American at Santa Barbara City College 2 years. He is still considered one of the greatest defensive linemen to ever play in our county. And people were talking about his career in the NFL back then. They called him Mr. Butkus. And to this day, he still holds the sack record for Santa Barbara City College for a 2-year career at 24 sacks. And he was a nose guard. Nose guards are double team, triple team. They don't get the sacks. It's always the defensive ends that come in from the edge that have the sack records. And here you got a nose guard that
so he was facing a center and 2 guards.
Yeah, and just did a wonderful job. for the Vaqueros. One of the happiest days for me was my sophomore year when the team voted both my brother and myself as the team captain. He was the defensive captain, I was the offensive captain. And so the Tremblay brothers going out there for the coin toss for the Vaqueros, was very special, especially for me, to be there with my big brother. And his career, because of injuries and things, he never was able to do the things that so many of us, including myself, thought he would be able to accomplish. But certainly through high school and 2 years at Santa Barbara City College, there was never a better football player.
Well, the luncheon after his ceremony at the Catholic Church, you got coaches that I didn't know still were alive who were there, who gave tribute to him. And it was a real blessing to, sometimes you go after a funeral to one of these things and you're doing it just to kind of make sure the person's family knows you're there and to get a little free food. And it was, it lasted an hour and a half, I think. It was
it was really amazing. He moved to Nevada. He was about an hour outside of Las Vegas. He liked to off-road, and he had a community he lived with there, and was happy in his retirement. And one of his friends hadn't noticed him come out of his house for a few days and went in to check on him and found him, he had passed away of an apparent heart attack in his chair, just out of nowhere. So it was a total surprise. And he hadn't lived in Santa Barbara for many years. And even with that, we had 250 people at that funeral at the old mission.
Yeah.
And afterwards, we were in the Friars Lounge and told stories for a couple hours. It was real special.
It was special to me, not only because I knew you, I didn't know John, but it just the history and the love and the testimonies. Just I sat there through the whole thing. I had the blessing of having a friend of ours who had been a professor, lawyer, minister, and Roy Millender sit with me. But Roy had to go after about 45 minutes. He had another appointment that he couldn't stand up. Mm-hmm. So I just sat there and sat there. Something I don't think I've told you is two guys sat down across the table from us, and I said hi, and everybody was there introducing, I know you. I didn't realize where I knew him. And after Roy had left and stuff, when he was getting ready to leave, he came over and he says, how's your hip? It was my hip surgeon.
Oh, geez. That's pretty good.
Another friend of ours.
Yeah.
It
was special. And it makes you, step back and realize, we're all going to go through that. It's part of being alive is you're going to have to pass away. And, it's never easy when someone close to you passes. But if they have their faith, and the good Lord is with them, you can have that joy knowing that they're in a better place. And that's what we hold on to as Christians. It's real important that you have that faith in the good Lord.
Yeah, I had blessed Christian parents. My dad was a Hard Rock Baptist and my mother a Presbyterian, and my dad ended up being an elder at First Pres, and they passed away, great funeral. And a friend of ours, Bob Burton, and another friend, Rob Raffelli, always are going and visiting the graves at the church there cemetery there on Hope. And my parents are buried at Goleta. I've never been there. And they said, how can you not go visit your parents' grave? They're not there. They're with the Lord. We have to have a place to bury your loved ones, but if you are going there to commune with them, they're not there.
Yeah.
So we have had several funeral of friends. Billy Levy was, what, 3 weeks before your brother?
A couple of weeks, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's nice to see people that you don't see often, but it's a tough way to see them that way.
Yeah.
You, in your career, the highlights are City College you just mentioned, but I'm aghast, upset that you didn't talk about the most important thing that happened at City College.
Oh yeah, I'm always happy to talk about that. Yeah. Probably the most important thing in my life, besides my faith in the good Lord, was meeting my wife, Marcia.
A cheerleader.
She was a cheerleader. I was captain of the football team. And the first time I asked her out, she said no. And I said, do you know who I am? And she goes, yes. You're out of here. Well, the chase was on. We've been married. We will be married 50 years in January. Boy. And it's been a wonderful journey.
Are we having a big party?
Well, she doesn't want a big party. You know, I was
Tell her
ready
I
to do
it.
that. Yeah. I think I'm going to take her on a cruise in the Northeast. Yeah. And you know, and take her to Niagara Falls. We've never been there. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what our plan is.
That's great.
Yeah.
You went on to be a scholarship athlete at Wake Forest, right?
The mighty Demon Deacons.
Yeah, you always, there's been a couple of times when they were really good a few years ago that you would say, come over to the office, we're all watching. Yeah, in fact, I would see Billy Levy there. Yeah. We're going to watch the game.
Yeah. Well, they for 8 years in a row went to a bowl game every year. Yeah. And they played for the ACC Conference Championship a few years ago. So, you know, pretty proud of the team. But, you know, things are really changing now with the NIL and you've got the portal where players are just going back and forth from these teams. You don't have the loyalty. You don't have that real devotion to the team that you had in the past. It's kind of sad to see that. It's all about money now in college football, especially Division I. Your team can be decimated with players leaving for other teams for money, basically.
Well, and some of the coaches enhance their career by having an All-American quarterback or wide receiver and saying to a bigger school, I'll come and he'll come with me. Is that right?
Right, yeah.
And that's, you know, it's just, I've found, and in fact, in politics, I keep trying to tell people, loyalty, your word is your bond, then loyalty and respect for what people have done with you are the most important things. And I've been very disappointed in some people that I got deeply involved, even went to the courthouse with them so they could file papers for an office. And they're doing things in the community. It's wonderful, but I never hear from them. And you know, it just, it hurts. It's disappointing. So you, when I first met you, you were working for, was it Prudential?
Prudential Beige.
Yeah.
Which is now Wells Fargo.
Yeah. You were at the Fremont Adobe when I met you. That's, for people who don't know, the building next to the post office on the corner there of De La Guerra. And I mean, there's walls in there that are 4 feet wide in adobe. And it was Fremont's headquarters way back in 1840. He and Wild Bill Cody. And you were there. I think you had an office there. It is broken up into offices.
Yeah, that was Cruttenden, right before I opened Tremblay Financial, like in 95, 96, right around there. And it's interesting, I had an office with a window. It didn't have a screen on it. I could open the window and actually do business with clients through the window. I had clients say, I'll stop by your window. I've got a check for you and I want to buy some stocks. So I'm at the window with the guy, he hands me the check. Okay, fine, and we put the order in. Those were fun days, and I had, my son and my daughter working with me in the office, my mom, and it was good. But the problem with those big wirehouses, those big firms, as with Prudential Bache and as with Smith Barney, which is now Morgan Stanley and Crittenden, they really have their whole business plan for their advisors, and it includes their mutual funds, their IPO, their insurance company. And they really want you working with them, and it may or may not be the best thing for the client, but it's certainly the best thing for the corporation. Wow. So I wanted to be in a position where I didn't have that kind of pressure, where all I looked at was my client and go to find the best vehicle, the best tool that I could to help my client achieve their goals and objectives. And that's been the case with Tremblay Financial.
Yeah, and some of those companies got into serious trouble in the 80s for working their own book, selling their own, pushing their own mutual funds, paying their agents more to do that.
Well, and at Prudential Bache, they had a real problem in the back room with the direct investment. There was actual fraud taking place at Prudential Bache. And so we were told, our clients were told, things that just weren't true. And so when that came to the surface, at first Prudential Bache was saying, no, we didn't do that. And then they saw that they had evidence and so on. So they put together a $2 billion settlement fund to just give people their money back. It was an unbelievable scandal. 2 books were written on it, Serpent on the Rock and In Good Faith. And so when all that came down, I decided it was time to have a different broker-dealer, and I moved to Smith Barney. And I ran into some of the same things there, and at Crittenden, and it was then that my wife and I said, let's just open our own office. Let's have a little office. So we did.
26 years ago?
26 years ago.
I remember these things because I'm blessed in you inviting me to them, even though I've never had any money to invest. And, I remember the wonderful bash you threw for your 25th anniversary.
Yes, that was at the Carriage Museum.
Yeah,
the
100 people. And
the 26th we had it at the Coral Casino. They just opened it, and we had a nice celebration there. So it's been 26 years now. When we opened our little office, we had card tables, and we were calling people, telling them about this little business we were getting started. And now we have 17 professionals on the corner of State and La Cumbre. We have an office in Santa Maria. We have one in Westlake Village. Our son Troy just opened an office in Nashville, Tennessee, and we supervise offices in San Jose and Sacramento. So we're a significant financial services business here in Santa Barbara. And the thing we're most proud of, for 16 years in a row, the community voted us the best full-service investment firm in Santa Barbara. So that's something to be proud of. We're doing something right.
Let's go back and talk. We're going to come back and talk about your business and the way you structure approaching your clients. And I guess I should say you're not a stockbroker. You don't make money selling.
Well, that's not quite true. We do have stock transactions that take place on a regular basis, and we do charge commission for the stock transactions. But it's a small part of the business now. What we'll do with
don't
equities,
correct me, even when I'm wrong.
Even when you're wrong. Well, with the equities in general, we'd want to have a manager that we hire to come in and manage that portfolio for our client. It's something you really have to pay attention to. And if you have other things going on, sometimes you get distracted when you're managing a portfolio. So it's important that you have a very good money manager. And through our broker-dealer, we have a great platform of money managers, Dunham, Equus, SEI, some of the best money managers out there that we can have come in and help our clients do the best they can with their stock portfolio.
Stepping back to the condition of the economy, which you have to watch, but I also note as we leave, and we'll come back to the way you do business, you don't do your business based upon what the stock market's doing, the war, the stupid president. You don't base your business, your consulting on that. You base it on the individual. We'll come back to that. Mm-hmm. how do you see the taxes and regulations that we've had the last 3 years, or maybe longer?
I think it's going to be a tale of two different approaches. We've got an election coming up. If it's Trump is our president, it's going to be a whole different thing for regulations, taxes, and so on. Than it will be for Biden if he continues as our president. He's already talking about adding to the taxes to the wealthy, getting rid of the tax cuts that we got through the Trump administration. And the regulations are coming. It's going to be a more difficult investment arena with the Biden administration than it would be with the Trump administration. It's just that's the way 90% of the analysts out there are looking at it.
Well, praise the polls. If they're accurate, it's going to be a landslide for Trump. And the last time, the crazies raised, well, oh, he'll be Hitler, he'll get us into wars, and they don't listen when you say, what did he do the last 4 years?
Yeah.
He got us out of wars, brought all our men that were overseas home, destroyed ISIS, and then didn't get us involved again. And he cut taxes. He cut 100,000 pages of regulation in his first day, and he's saying he's going to do that again. Mm-hmm. So that affects the bigger markets, but it will affect how you consult with people.
Well, let me tell you, regardless of who's in there, we have an approach that we feel is going to be successful for our clients and help them get to the finish line, their retirement, as we're trying to plan that for them. What we do is we find out who our client is financially before we ever make a recommendation. An investment portfolio that's great for one could be totally inappropriate for another. So it's important that you find out, get a picture of who this client is financially. What is their temperament? What do they feel about risk and safety? What's their time frame? Are they looking at buying a house, or is it retirement or college education for the kids?
We've got enough time. Let's go back to the big picture. How is the investment market affected, and what is the ethical and moral reaction to the second Holocaust and the war in Israel?
It's been difficult. There's no question to see what's taking place now and all the additional problems that we're seeing as a result of what took place in Israel. The attack was out of nowhere. It killed 1,200 people in Israel, and it was just brutal. And so what they said is, now it's time that we have to go get ISIS. We're going to do everything that we need to eliminate that. Well, war is horrible, and when you have a commitment like that, you're going to see casualties that you don't want to see. And that's what's taken place in Israel. You're seeing people that are killed and innocents lives are lost in this war, as is the case in every war. That's right. It's not unusual. It's part of the process of having a war. Wars are horrible. Wars are hell. But then you also have to say, what is their choice? What can they do for the situation that they have for their people? Well, they have to protect them. And you see, most of the citizens in the United States support Israel in protecting and doing the things that they have to do for their people as a result of that attack. And then you have these fringe groups that are coming in that are causing all of the chaos on the campuses. And it isn't the will of the people of the United States, it's these fringe groups. And they have some legitimate concerns for innocent civilians, but they're going beyond that. And some of the claims they're making against Israel is just so difficult. And I've got a number of Jewish clients that are just beside themselves with what's going on, as well as others that are just part of our community, seeing what's taken place. And it's not just Israel, it's what's happening throughout our country now. All the colleges, all the universities, You're seeing these infiltration coming in and trying to get this anti-Semitism going and support Palestine. And it's an issue that has gone on for thousands of years. Israel's history goes back to Jerusalem thousands of years ago. And they're going to say, well, Israel shouldn't even be there. Well, they should. It's their country. And they've tried to say, okay, we'll have Gaza, we'll have the Eastern Bank, or the West Bank, and have a place for the Palestinians. And no matter what they've tried, it hasn't worked because they don't want it to work. And now this concept of going from the river to the sea, that means they want to take out all of Israel. And that's certainly not an answer. We saw that in World War II with what took place with the Jews.
Yeah, I think it's Joshua 5, when God told Joshua to move into the Promised Land. He said, cross the river Jordan and go to the setting sun at the ocean. So this river to the sea isn't something new, and it isn't just a battle cry that the Palestinians are using. We keep going back to this orange man. I'd hate to call him an orange man, but that's what even our own side says. Mm-hmm. He moved in peace to bring the Abraham Accord and have not only dialogue but unity with some of the great Arab powers to try and answer this question. So, there's another who's a peacemaker and how is peace made, and
it's been a difficult problem for years and years, and no matter what takes place, you're not going to make everybody happy. It's just the way it is. But if they could somehow pacify the Palestinians and have a place that they can call home, and the same with Israel, and let them work and live side by side, that's the goal. It just hasn't been something that's feasible up to this point.
Well, but there are Arab members of the Knesset. I think almost 20% of the Jewish legislature is Arabs that have lived in Israel in peace for years, mm-hmm. have fought in the IDF, the Israel military. So we could hope that could be expanded, that they could live in peace and work together.
Well, you would hope, and you would hope that in Ukraine. Yeah. I mean, what's going on there is so sad to see the destruction and lives lost. And now we're concerned with what might happen in Taiwan.
Yeah.
Taiwan is the next kind of military situation that we're going to see. China is just setting up and getting ready for an invasion there, and they're watching what's taking place in Israel. They're watching what's going on in the Ukraine to see if this is something that we're ready to do right now. Is it something that we're? And the thing about China is they can take a long time. They really have a long view on anything that they decide to do for their country. So we're praying that war won't take place. That could be 3 war fronts that we'd have to be concerned with, and that takes a toll not just on the United States, on the whole world.
Again, the power of the world leader in the White House is so important. The clarity. You don't go any further. Mm-hmm. I have a problem with Ukraine in that the government is so corrupt, and they just announced they're in power forever. They've done away with elections. They'd already done away with the rights of the Orthodox Church mm-hmm. In meetings. Oh, it was for their own protection, of course. Mm-hmm. But Jimmy Carter always had after he was president, he had ways of coming in and getting people together to settle these border crises, because the Ukrainian-Russian war is really a border crises. The four southern provinces of Ukraine are Russian, as Crimea was. You know, they held a plebiscite after the Russians just took over Crimea, and the Russians won the plebiscite by 80%. And they would win in those four southern provinces because those are Russian-speaking provinces. There's been a civil war with the greater Ukraine trying to force them into the country. Mm-hmm. And so, not to defend Russia, but and same kind of thing started the Second World War when there were Germans in border countries between France and say Poland and Belgium, and then that Hitler used them as the excuse to come in and protect their rights that were being abused. And Putin's kind of doing the same thing. He's really fighting in the Ukraine to protect the Russians in southern Ukraine that have had a 20-year civil war, killing each other. And we seem to not be the peacemaker as much as part of it is, as Eisenhower warned us about, the industrial complex. You know, we've got people who want to sell weapons, and we give them our weapons here as foreign aid. Oh wait, we have to enter big contracts to replenish. And do you look at things like that, the replenishment, the big expenditure in military, as you look to your clients?
You know, it really depends on the client. You know, if you're talking about the war complex and all the companies that are going to benefit from wars, I mean, you invest there and you can make some money. Obviously, there are clients that, hey, they're not worried about the war; they're worried about their portfolio and how they're going to do well with it. You could talk about some clients that, hey, I just don't want to invest in tobacco or alcohol, or cannabis, but you can make some money there. So I think as you look at investing and saying, you know, where are we going to look to put our money to help us achieve our goals, part of that's going to be your belief system. You're not going to want to invest and make money in things that you really don't agree with. There are a lot of folks that believe that. And so you really have to design a portfolio to fit who your client is financially, not just achieving those goals, but how do you achieve those goals?
Well, in these anti-Semitism, the riots in our country, do you ever say to a client, I won't represent you in this way?
Sure. Yeah, there'll be situations where it just isn't a good fit. You know, if you can't agree on some of the basics that we use to help our clients achieve their goals, then you don't want to have a situation where it's a confrontation. You have to be on the same side of the table. And so, you know, that's something that's important. You really want to make sure that your client, the advisor, everyone involved, the different investment companies and so on, are all working together to achieve those goals. And that's real important and something that we've done for years at Tremblay Financial.
It may be that we're in a third world war already in this battle over the control, really Israel's an excuse. You know, when they in Southern California broke up the riots and demonstrations at UCLA, there were interviews and asked people why they were there, and most of them didn't even know, but several of them said climate change. It had nothing to do with the purpose of the demonstration leaders.
Well, you know, the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? I was at Bishop Diego High School in the 60s, and UCSB had their riots. They burned the Bank of America down 3 times out in Isla Vista, the students at UCSB. And we're in high school at the time, and one of our friends would say, hey, they're burning the bank down, let's go watch. We'd drive out there to see what was going on, and That was UCSB. It was all over the country back then. We had the protests for Vietnam, and back then it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It was the hippie movement. And, I remember my dad at the time said, this country's going to hell in a handbasket. And, we got out of that. And we started to see some real good times in the 80s and 90s. And, we saw revivals take place. And you go through these cycles in this fallen world that we're in. And, if you stay the course and you have the values that are so important for you and your family, and you'll achieve that in spite of what we see take place in this world. And that's certainly been the case. We've been through some difficult times at Tremblay Financial, from the 9/11 fiasco. We saw Wall Street shut down for 4 days, and we didn't know if the world had changed forever when we saw what was taking place at that time. It was unbelievable. And then we had Iraq and Afghanistan. We had 3 years where the market dropped 50% over that 3-year period. And then things came back. In 2008, we were at a record high, the Great Recession. If you had 100,000 in blue chip stocks, by the end of that year, you had 40. And emerging markets, the NASDAQ, others were even more dramatic. That was a very difficult time.
Yeah, if you didn't stay the course, you lost $60,000.
Well, we stayed the course.
Yeah.
And we got our clients through that very difficult period. And here we are now. We've been through COVID, and now we're looking at these other concerns that we have with Israel and the Ukraine, and with inflation the way it is, and we still have the remnants of COVID and what that has done to our country, and so we need to stay the course through this. We'll get to the other side. There's still that optimism that we like to hold on to.
Today we hit a milestone, and that the
40,000 in the Dow.
Yeah. Fell back off by the close, but not by much. But it's
intraday we were over 40.
Yep. I was getting dressed to go to the post office, and I'm watching. You have clients that do what I do? Watch Fox Business. You probably have clients that watch that other
CNBC.
Yeah, the other people's. Although I think the people in their business section are not as crazy as the media part of CNBC.
Yeah.
And I saw it hit, and I'm thinking, how can this be happening when there's such chaos and the average person is paying 20% more than they did a year ago for everything?
I'll tell you what I think it is. The market is always giving us kind of an idea of what we can anticipate in the future. People are buying stocks and investing because they believe that we're going to see some good things down the road. You have to remember with the stock market, when you have more buyers, it goes up. When you have more sellers, it declines. So people are going to buy based on what they think the future holds. And I think the market is telling us right now that they think that we're going to have new leadership, that we're going to have a different president, that Trump will be elected. That's what the market is telling us. And they could be right, they could be wrong. But the polls are telling us that. And if that's the case, we're going to see some better days ahead. And I think that's why the market, even with all this chaos that's going on right now, it's telling us that the market tells us that the future is bright for investments.
Well, again, the market's people buying and selling. It's not some economists at Harvard making decisions.
Right, it's institutions, it's big money managers, it's hedge funds, it's a whole wide range. But to see the market as strong as it has been. Now, we've had our ups and downs. There have been times during this year when we were down considerably, a couple thousand points from where we are now, and there's going to be some concerns there. But when I got in the business in 1983, we had a party in our office at Prudential Base when the market broke 1,000. Okay, it's now 40,000.
Yeah.
Right. that's a heck of a journey. And it didn't go straight up. We had some tough times. 87, we had the crash in 87, where the market dropped over 20% in one day. That was tough. Milken and Boesky and the junk bond fiasco.
Oh, people should just stay the course.
Remember, we used to have savings and loans. They're gone. We went through a very difficult time there. So the journey from 83 to now, the 41 years I've been doing this, has really been quite a journey of difficult and wonderful times. But the key is to stay invested, to have a plan, and to stick with it until you achieve your goals.
Well, some of the things you mentioned, we go back to government interference. It was the government who decided what kind of money and capital the savings and loans really didn't fail because they were bad businesses. They changed the reserves and capital that they had to have, and that drove many of them out of business because they couldn't achieve that.
No, it's true.
Including county savings here in Santa Barbara.
But it was a tough time. It was very difficult to go through that.
Yeah, and two of our friends, Billy Levy and Roy Millender, were
part of the county savings.
Big investors, and the key was they personally had arranged an $80 million line of credit to put money into county savings to save it, and the regulators wouldn't let them. It was the government that forced it into.
No, that's true. With the savings and loans, you can look at the government making mistakes that, probably could have had a different outcome.
Right.
But then there are other things like Milken and Boesky and the junk bond fiasco. That was just fraud.
Yeah.
It wasn't right, and it took a lot of people down. The Great Recession. That was a difficult time for a lot of people, and there are a lot of reasons for that Great Recession. But we've made it through that. Our clients at Tremblay Financial have continued to stay on that journey toward their retirement through the good times and the bad. And that's something we're real proud of, and we're going to continue to do that well into the future. Help guide our clients through these difficulties, because we're going to continue to have difficulties, Jim. I mean, that's the nature of this world. And so stay the course and don't let these difficulties take you down.
Somebody wrote about the benefits of stress to the person.
Yeah.
That it really is a healthy thing in the right level.
Right.
Did you write that?
Yeah, there's some guy named Tim Tremblay that wrote that on The Current.
Yeah. Your article's about every 2 weeks in The Current.
Yeah, I've done right now through the news press and The Current about 26 columns. And it's been a lot of fun. I think it's been well received.
Somebody got you started at the news press. Who was it?
Somebody. I know that you played a part in that too, and it was with Arthur von Wiesenberger.
Yeah.
He'd got me going with that. I wrote a letter to an op-ed to the editor, and it was well received. And then they asked me to do this several years ago, and it's tough to take the time to do that when you have so many other things going. But it's actually been rewarding for me and for my clients, and I think a lot of people have gotten some good information from the columns.
When that happened, I was close to Arthur and you, and I kind of take pride in saying I brokered it to get you together. But when I first talked to you, you said, I don't have time. And I said, well, you can have somebody else write it and you can edit it, for the news press. Mm-hmm. And you chose not to do that. You write it yourself.
That's right. Yeah. So it's been good. And I don't plan to retire. I'm going to die in the saddle. Part of that column that we talked about, having stress, if you have the right stress, it's going to keep you going. I can't tell you how many clients I've worked with over the past 41 years that retire and go home and die.
Yeah.
You've got to have a purpose. And it doesn't mean you can't retire, but if you retire, find something fulfilling to do.
Even if it's only travel or a hobby, you have to have, the mind has to plan. And if you can't say, here's what I'm going to do tomorrow, and I'd like to do this next week, you're dead. You are going to be dead.
Yeah.
Well, you say you're going to die in the saddle. You've heard my answer. How people say, how are we going to know you're going to retire, Jim? I said, you'll be there shoveling dirt in my face.
There you go.
And I'll be in the grave.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's kept me young. I have good genes, but...
you remember my mom.
Oh, God bless her.
Her name around the office was Grandma Dottie.
Yeah.
And she was the first woman to achieve the position of personnel officer for Los Padres National Forest.
Right.
And she retired at 65. She's this little 5'0" Irish woman at the Forest Service telling these macho men where to go and how to get there. And then at 65 she retired, and I brought her into my office. She was at Prudential Bache, at Smith Barney, Crutnan, Tremblay Financial.
She was the only person that was nice to me at Tremblay. She was, can I get you a cup of coffee? Hey, did you hear? Tim will be with you.
She worked with me until
wonderful.
She worked with me until she was 91. And it was.
She didn't look a day over 75.
And it was a joy to have her in there. So I plan to beat Grandma Dottie's record.
Well, I'm hoping that you're still alive when I die, but don't count. 104 is, I don't know how old that will make you, but I don't know why. It's not a very nice story. Why I think I promised a girlfriend once that I was going to live. I had a 40-year plan, and I was 64. I said, I've got a 40-year plan. She says, I know you do. And I thought, I'm 64. That's 104. So we'll see. It's all in his hands.
Yes.
Let's now, this last 10 minutes now, talk about the functions you throw, and then a brief synopsis of the triad.
Okay. We have events that we've done over the past, actually for 41 years I've been doing dinner seminars. Yeah, and what we'll do is we'll have speakers come in with great subjects that they're going to bring to our audience. Experts in different arenas. We might bring a money manager in. We'll bring someone that's an official for an insurance company that might talk about some of their investments that they have for us. Or it could be a mutual fund money manager, or a real estate program.
Yeah, I was all surprised the first time I saw that you had somebody speaking about their apartment syndications and how people could invest with them in pure real estate, not
exactly.
stock.
So we'll have a whole wide range of different speakers that we'll bring in, and then we'll have a dinner. In Santa Barbara, we've been using Harry's Plaza, or we'll use the University Club, and there's no cost or obligation. We'll bring folks in, they'll hear a presentation, and then we'll tell them, if you'd like to get together and go through a personal financial consultation, no cost, no obligation. We'd like to show you how we can help, and we think it would be valuable. Yeah. So that's something I've been doing for 40 years on a regular basis, just having these dinner presentations.
You didn't invite me the first 20 years.
Oh, I did.
We weren't that close, yeah.
And then we have another program that we're...
Well, wait, how do people find out?
Go to tremblayfinancial.com. Okay. And go to events, and we'll have a list of all the different events that we have.
Where and when.
And we'll have them in Westlake Village. We use the Westlake Village Inn. We use the Manhattan in Camarillo. We use the Santa Maria Country Club. And then here in Santa Barbara, we've been using Harry's and the University Club and the Coral Casino. So different locations, different subjects, and we're going to have those continually for our community. In addition to that, we have what we refer to as modern retirement planning. And we have one coming up here in the next week or two at Santa Barbara City College. So it's a 2-night, 3 hours for each night, where we'll bring curriculum. There's no product. It's just concepts, what you need to know and what you need to plan for retirement.
Just education.
Educational, and we found that to be very beneficial to a lot of folks.
Do you force them into a pitch, or you just?
No, it's just a totally educational program.
And
now afterwards, I mean, a lot of these folks have said, "Hey, I'd like you to help us," and that's great. But you don't have to. You use the information. You're going to pay $75 to take the class, and you're presented the curriculum to take with you. So it's an investment for folks, and we think it's a good investment. And we've been real proud to bring that to the community.
On your website?
On our website, TremblayFinancial.com, and go to events.
So hard to remember, TremblayFinancial.com.
and in addition to that, we'll have what we call small dinner get-togethers, and these are for Reg D offerings for high net worth individuals. So they won't be a seminar kind of situation, but more of a real smaller kind of close-knit presentation. And we have different regulations that we have to follow for the Reg D offering. And so that's something we continue to do on a regular basis at Tremblay Financial.
You're busy.
Yeah, we are.
You're really busy.
And we enjoy it. It's great. Part of that is going to be this presentation on the triad that you referred to. And it's an asset allocation that we developed at Tremblay Financial that really is the key to our clients getting through these difficult times.
Explain it.
You have 3 different asset
You've
classes.
got 7 minutes.
Yeah, there are 3 asset classes. You have the safe money, which is the foundation, and that's got to be funds that you can't lose. And right now, the fixed index products could be an insurance program, investments that are guaranteed. That
annuities and bonds.
Correct. And if it was bonds, it would have to be a treasury bond that you know you've got the full faith and credit of the U.S. government behind it. So that's one asset class we think is important. Now, the older you get and closer to retirement, that asset's going to grow as a percentage of the portfolio. Early on, it'll be a smaller portion because you'll be more aggressive. Time mitigates risk. And then we have the alternative space. That asset class are investments that are not traded, so they're not correlated to the stock market. They pay a nice dividend, but they're not in the stock market. They're non-correlated. They're paying a dividend every month, and we dollar cost average that dividend from these non-correlated assets, we call them alternatives, into the stock market.
Is that like that real estate trust?
Exactly, that pays a dividend every month.
Right.
And so that goes into the dollar cost average into the market. So when we went through the Great Recession, the safe money didn't go down. The alternatives are not in the stock market, they didn't go down. The stock market portion did, but we're buying it every month. We're dollar cost averaging. So you applaud when the market's down when you're buying it.
Yeah.
So you're buying more shares and you're getting them when they're cheap. And so when the market does come back, you don't come back to where it was, you're much higher because you've been buying these cheaper shares as the market dropped. So that approach, that triad asset allocation, has really helped in the growth mode. And then when it comes time for income, with a signature and a phone call, we can change each of those asset classes to produce income for our clients. You might take 1, 2, or all 3 of the asset classes and then have those dividends, have that income go directly into your checkbook every month. Mm-hmm. We've had clients that have come in and set up the income mode where the 3 asset classes are paying right away, and then they get a job as a consultant. They don't need the income. It's very easy to go back from income to growth and have those dividends reinvest, dollar cost average, and have the entire portfolio growing.
So this isn't a cookie cutter, here's the brochure. You meet with every client. You have a consultant that meets with every client, gets to know what they want, what their goals are, and begin to fit it into the triad.
Correct.
What do you charge for that?
We don't charge a fee to do that. Okay. Now, with the money management, there is a fee. There's about a 1%, give or take, depending on the portfolio, for the managed account. The insurance, the safe money, the annuities, there's no fee charged. Now, the company is paying us a fee, and it comes out of the earnings, but our clients don't see a fee on top of that. Now, some of us, our competitors, will get paid by the company in addition, charge a fee.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
Double dip.
The alternative's the same thing. We're paid by the companies. The client doesn't pay a fee on top of it.
I could tell by the suits you wear and the things you do that you make money. I was more wanting to make clear that when people come in and consult with you and maybe take 10 hours, you're not charging them by the hour.
No.
Your income stream comes from what they're successful
That's
at.
exactly right. And you know, I could charge, and people
yeah,
wouldn't
people do.
mind.
That's why I was.
But we've chosen not to, with the exception of the managed accounts. And you know, if you're buying individual stocks, there'll be a commission charge unless you're in a fee-based account. So there are costs, commission costs for some clients. For others, we have clients that do not pay a commission.
We have 2 minutes. Anything new you want to tell the people, or?
Well, I would say this to kind of close. I always enjoy our conversations, Jim, and I've gotten good response from people. They appreciate some of the topics that we've been able to cover. And the one thing that I'll say is, you know, thank you. Thank you for what you've done over the years with this one-on-one with Jim Worthen. There's been a lot of good information that's gotten out there to a lot of people. And I don't think you hear that enough, but on behalf of all of us at Tremblay Financial, we want to thank you.
Don't waste your 2 minutes with me.
And the other thing I want to tell clients is that don't lose hope. We've been through those difficult times. I talked about some of those that we've been through over the past 41 years, and really since the beginning of this country. It's been a real up and down journey that we've seen. And even with the difficulties that we see out there, you've got to have the optimism that is so apparent in this country. We've got a great future ahead of us. And keep the good Lord in the middle of all of it.
Amen. And what was the name of this show? Something about a course. What?
Modern retirement planning.
No, stay the course.
Stay the course, yes, that's right. Stay the course is our motto at Tremblay Financial.
You send me some things that you write, and one came across my desk just a week or so ago, and I fired back to you. Wonderful, but you didn't have the ending. Stay the course.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I promise you the next one will have that. Thanks again, my friend.
Tim.
Thank you so much.
God bless you.
Yeah, God bless.